Hi guys, it's David James from Business Growth Digital Marketing, and in today's show, I've got one of my really good and well-trusted friends in the SEO space, one of Australia's own, and in my opinion, Australia's finest, Andrew Glyntzos from Omega Digital. Welcome aboard.
Thanks a lot, David. Glad to be with you.
Yeah. So just for those people who aren't familiar with Omega Digital and yourself, can you just give us a bit of a background about yourself, your agency, and what you've been doing?
I've been involved in the digital space for about 10 years now. I started developing sites in 2007 with the goal where the boss at the time was introducing me back then to basics of search engine optimization. So I was exposed that early on. And we started Amiga Digital about 4 years ago when I left the last agency I was working for to focus on online marketing in the way that I believe it should be done, and to work on the sort of clients that we can bring value to. So, yeah, it's been a great adventure.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And like since 2007, we've seen so many changes. Like, what are some of the key changes that you think has stood out to you since you started in the industry?
I think a lot has to do with, obviously, with Google's algorithm, the search engines in general's algorithms have become more advanced. So the sort of issues that we look at now is far more deeper. We need far more tools and analytics to solve our clients' problems. Whereas when I started in 2007, very early on, and then 2008 when I got into it full time, it was largely based on how the site is being accessible, and people knew early on. Some people knew how to game the system. So bad SEOs basically brought about the biggest advancements in search engine optimization, as Google realized, especially, that there's very clever people out there, and so they've helped to develop the industry and improve the algorithm to the point now where it's more difficult now, but it's certainly far more enjoyable.
Yeah, like I've seen so many changes as well, because I really got into it full time around the same time as you, so I've noticed the changes as well.
Yeah.
And like myself, originally I was a technical SEO, and I now wear quite a lot of different hats. And with a few of the other SEOs I've been speaking with, they've said pretty much the same thing. They started out as a technical person, but now they are very much a digital strategist. Have you found
A
that as well?
holistic.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And you find that you got to wear many hats.
yeah,
Whereas before it was really strictly technical with a little bit of link building. And now it's really important that you have a holistic approach to how business is actually conducted in the real world.
yeah,
And knowing how to translate what we used to do in marketing in the offline world
yeah,
and how we do that in the online world
yeah,
is just constantly growing. And the importance of social engagement, customer experience, reviews. It's great in the sense that bad businesses pretty much don't have anywhere to hide,
yeah,
and the good businesses have the platforms and basically the exposure to promote. Even the very small businesses have the opportunity to expose themselves in a far easier way than 15, 20 years ago.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, like one of the key things with SEO, but it's something that a lot of people still don't quite grasp, is the technical aspect. So, like over the last few years, I've seen the importance of content grow. There's the influence of links. There's the influence of social, and people do know that technical SEO is important, but a lot of people are still stuck in the mindset that technical SEO equals like meta tags, meta descriptions, titles, and that's it. Could you just paint a picture for us of what you think if you can paint a picture of the scope of technical SEO at the moment, just in your opinion?
I think it's going to vary in the size of each website, and it varies obviously in the industry that they're in. Obviously, I love technical SEO, solving the problems when you deal with sites. I've got one client that has probably 50,000 pages,
Yeah.
and probably more than that, growing continuously all the time. And obviously, some of the big issues that we deal with is crawlability and how the robots find the new pages that he uploads.
Yes.
And understanding how the search engine robots crawl pages, how they index pages, how they find pages, page speed optimizations. Page speed optimization is probably an industry within itself, and optimizing, how quickly assets are getting loaded and how many are getting loaded is really, really important. I think a lot has to come down to obviously how the website design basically is structured. But if you're dealing with a site that only has 5 to 10 pages, it's not so much of an issue in terms of crawlability.
Yeah.
I know, years ago, H1's the main header.
Yeah.
That's basically now more or less redundant, but I still like to include them because page structure and layout is still so important.
Yeah.
And obviously, you still have to build a page that's going to make sense for the users. Headlines are still important to the users. So, and as well, and maybe even if it's not so important for the search engines. So crawlability, page speed, sitemaps, canonicals, which obviously sometimes in e-commerce platforms, you might have products can fit in multiple categories.
Yeah.
And that can become an issue with duplicate content. So how the robots are moving around and how do they know which page to index and whatnot is the big challenge and excitement of technical SEO.
Yeah. Like what you said, it's resonated with another interview that I recently did with a couple other guys, and they pretty much said exactly the same thing. Now, one of the other things that's really impressed me with your SEO expertise and abilities is the case studies. There's people who talk the talk and there's people who walk the walk. One of the things I really, really love about what you do, Andrew, is that you come with hard facts, hard proof about campaigns that you've worked on and how you've actually been able to demonstrate the results, and you can actually see the growth trends, when you started and what's actually happened. Would you mind just sharing either examples or just illustrating some times when you've been able to implement some technical SEO tactics that have resulted in wins for any sites that you've worked on, whether they're your own or someone else's?
Yeah, largely, obviously, getting the case studies that we've been able to achieve has largely also become involved with knowing how to use and work with the business owners and work with the executives and the marketing team. Yeah. I think for us, that's where our big focus is knowing how to use the business people. Yeah. That's basically a real big insight into how me and my team work with their SEO. Yeah. In terms of technical SEO, sure, especially with my e-commerce clients, largely it comes basically optimizing the page speed, optimizing how Google crawls the search engines, going from 13,000 people in 2013 to over 65, 70,000 today. Really came about a lot with making sure that the search engines can find the content, making sure they find it quickly, making sure when products are added, especially new products that are more industry known and customers obviously they know about that product. If Google can't get to them and they can't get indexed, they're just not going to be found. So as websites grow and build, obviously you can leverage the growth of your client's business and obviously make sure that when they do grow that you nut out all the problems you're going to have with crawlability and obviously deal with any of the technical challenges you have with any growing site. The servers, make sure that they're not going down, time to download assets and things like that. So where we've been able to flourish is obviously in that e-commerce space and optimizing product pages, making sure that they're mobile friendly, making sure that the titles are clearly describes the product. There's actually descriptions. And without getting into the real boring details of it all, to some people, it's really you cannot underestimate the importance of optimizing how the search engines find and display information. The speed at which they find the information I've found to be a really a big factor in the growth that we've had so far, especially with the larger sites.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. The person I interviewed not long ago, which is Omi Sidhu, like he's working on Canon Europe's like SEO and really
That's a big
focusing on the technical SEO. Yeah, he told me that there's like 600,000 pages, and that he also did work for the Daily Mail, which is the biggest newspaper site in in the UK anyway. And one of the factors he was telling me was he uses the meta keyword in order to tell the search engine in the newspaper space like what the article is about, like really quickly. I said to him, look, like that would end up being a debate in itself, if you just went and posted that on a forum. But then he was telling me that the speed at which the crawler comes to the site and the speed at which it needs to be able to access the information is critical in the newspaper space. He said, there's no evidence, he didn't say there's no evidence, but he said there was strong evidence in the newspaper sector that if you didn't mark up the page properly with the information in order for the crawler to come and grab that information quickly, like at the speed that it needs to, then it's unlikely that you'd be able to beat the other competitors in the space.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also making sure that, exactly schema is another, where do we start? Where do we end? I mean, there's so many components, there's so many bits and pieces. But their schema is so important, customer reviews. So even with, as you mentioned, we talked about 2007, 2008 SEO, we didn't worry about customer reviews and the search engines having rich snippets and more information that is actually going to encourage clicks. So it's one thing to be first, one thing to be second, but making sure that you actually, especially in e-commerce, if you've got 5-star reviews, make sure they're known. And the more information that when a user first sees it, it's something that's going to be meaningful to them. Whereas back in 2007, if we would optimize a web page, the titles might be just, keyword 1 - keyword 2 - keyword 3.
Exactly.
Now creating meaningful, rich snippets and, call to actions right from the get-go, right before they even land on the website. And that whole funnel and journey starts really earlier than what we ever used to consider it.
Yeah, what you've just said is like you've kind of given away a massive gold nugget there, and this is something that a lot of a lot of SEOs need to try to grasp in order to really take their campaigns to the next level. There's doing like technical SEO, there's doing content SEO, content marketing, etc.
Sure.
Yeah, but there's a strong need to be able to merge that into the wider either SEO strategy or digital marketing strategy. And in order to do that, you need to have a strong process. And the process isn't just about the execution, where you need to be able to get the technical factors on the website, but you also need to get the key stakeholders to buy into those changes as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when it comes to like dealing with processes, either figuring out what kind of processes you need to implement as a part of your strategy, or to execute, like how do you go about that? Like, for example, how do you manage the expectations with like stakeholders if you know that you need to implement a certain process in order to achieve the goal?
I think it's education right from the get-go, and making sure that you answer all of the potential clients' concerns early on. And I think SEO now, it does have a reputation that it's a long-term strategy, because when I deal with new clients calling us, they know when I say it's a long-term strategy that it's not just something that I'm trying to use as a sales technique. But it really, the focus I tell my clients is our goal within Omega Digital is to make sure that we build an exceptionally long relationship with you, not only because we want to work with you for a long time and establish a great relationship, but for the overall success of the campaign. The more we learn about your business and your industry, and the greater the results are going to happen. And further down the line, when we're setting the first 12-month goals, well, 3 or 4 years later, when we understand the industry and how it works, we can set more ambitious goals.
Yeah.
And obviously, as we build and develop more authority, I always tell clients, David, that SEO really should never end.
Yeah.
The only time you should end is when you retire.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Because, I mean, it's essentially how a business is found today.
Yes.
You know, when my dad started his business back in the early 90s, he called his company AAA BCO, ABCO, just so he'd be at the top of the yellow pages. Because back then, that's how it was found. It still had to be first, but how the results were sorted were very, very different.
And SEO in the family.
SEO's in the family. Well, he was thinking along the lines of, look, I have to be number one when someone opens up yellow pages. Well, today, it's obviously those fundamentals are still found, but you don't need to rank. You don't need to call your business name AAA BCO. So basically, it's really important to manage expectations, and I think stakeholders, executives, owners, they all understand now that it is a long-term strategy. And really, what I find that what new clients are after is the confidence that you can help them.
Yes.
And to provide information straight from the get-go, and to while the SEO strategy is a long-term, some ways never-ending strategy, in a sense, you want to also educate the client. There is some early wins together to obtain early on in the campaign.
Yes.
But I think a client's going to work with you when you feel in deep down inside, and they can see through that you've got the confidence and the ability to help them.
Yeah, look, I agree. Another thing I wanted to touch on was actually demonstrating value to clients, or to anybody who's going to get involved in SEO, whether they go with a freelancer or an agency, or they decide to hire someone in-house. So, ultimately, everyone wants to make as much money as possible. But then there's some cases where people want to hire an SEO to completely turn their business around. Or they want to expand on the success that they've had already, or they don't know where to start. But then somebody just said, "Look, you need to do SEO." In your opinion, how should an SEO expert, whether they're an agency or freelancer or in-house, how should they demonstrate the value to their stakeholders, or what are some ways that you think they can demonstrate the value?
Again, I think it's understanding the goals of the company.
Yeah.
And again, it's education and communication. I think education through communication, of course, and understanding what does a successful campaign look like in 12 months.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because what I've learned very early on was that what you might think is a successful campaign, they don't perceive it as such. And, back in the day, I remember 2007, 2008, 2009, it was all about keyword rankings.
Yes.
These keywords need to rank, okay? And then what we found quite early on is when these keywords did start to rank, after 12 months, clients still weren't happy.
Yeah.
And some were leaving. So when you actually boil it down to its bottom line, obviously, it's going to come back down to. Yeah. But really understanding both the SEO agency or the SEO expert or the freelancer and the stakeholders, the business owner, whoever's involved on the other side, that they understand that you both have the understanding of what a successful campaign is going to look like in 12 months, so you're both on the same page. So the communication and the expectations is set straight from the get-go. And if the SEO, from his point of view, he must feel as though he can reach those results and be confident in his ability or the agency's ability, and the stakeholders, therefore, making sure that the goals that they're going to achieve is going to make sense to the business in the short term and the long term. Sometimes if they might say, we want a 30% growth, it's really, okay, what are we currently getting, and what does that mean, that 30% growth, and how much work is going to be detailed in that? So I think it comes back to what I was saying before. I think it's got to do with managing the expectations based on a mutual agreement on what a successful campaign looks like in 12 months, 24 months, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Now, just to expand on that. It did. Actually,
cool.
Just to expand on that, when we first started, and a few of the other people, when they also first started, SEO was quite siloed. So, they tell you need to achieve X, Y, Z, and then they leave you to your own devices, and then you just send through reports.
Sure. Yeah.
Nowadays, I don't think that's the case. A lot of other people I've been speaking to, they've been saying that's no longer the case as well. There's a really, really big importance to get everybody who's involved in the campaign on board, or people who might not think that SEO is a part of their day-to-day job. Like you need to be able to persuade them and to get them to buy into what
Absolutely.
you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I just wanted to get you to share your thoughts with that approach in today's SEO world.
Yeah, absolutely. The way in which we approach SEO is we really explain to the client straight up that you need to be involved, because there's certain elements, especially when the link building and the more advanced components of SEO, where their involvement is key.
Mm-hmm.
When we're working on the larger sites,
Yes.
such as Bingley and Kennards self-storage, the owners had leverage in terms of what they could achieve and what they could get that we couldn't.
Yes.
And understanding that if they are able to obtain what you wanted or what you required, it's going to improve and progress not just the SEO but the bottom line,
Yeah.
and obviously build up the company's authority on the search engines, and then that has a great effect long term. I tell clients straight when we start working with new clients, we basically set the expectation that you guys, stakeholders, team, whoever it's going to be, needs to be heavily involved. When we work with a client, we actually provide a whole section on the work that we need them to get done,
Yes.
kind of their homework, for example.
Yeah.
And to make sure that they buy into it. I find that the middle to larger clients that we deal with understand that they are going to have to be involved.
Yes.
I think it's when you deal with the smaller clients when they are kind of doing everything.
Yes.
They're running their own business. They're trying to organize teams.
Yes.
They're just really running around like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be like, I don't have really much time to do that. And I think the best way, if you're going to work with those sort of clients, is when they see some sort of the results, when they see a taste of what's actually out there, if they work together with the SEO, especially the short-term wins, you can persuade them to get involved, because this is ultimately one of the most important components of your business is online marketing.
Yeah.
And successful business people will tell you all the time, there's really only two components of business, and that's innovation and marketing.
Yeah.
So what else could you basically be spending at least 50% of your time should be some sort of marketing. And the clients that we work with understand that and know that, because the way in which we build and develop our campaigns long term, we can't we tell them we basically can't do it without your involvement, because it's your business, and you're going to be able to leverage sort of strategies that within our campaign that are going to help us in the long term. So, and there's certain things that only you guys can do for us and do for your business. So, I like I said, I think the understanding in the industry of the fact that SEO is long term and the fact that they need to get involved is growing. Thanks to all the whole entire SEO community and great articles and great posts on the internet. So I think the industry is waking up to, I can't just let my SEO guy in the corner there, basically leave him alone and I don't have to worry about doing anything. If you get a telemarketer call and someone calls you up and says, you don't have to do anything and I'll grow your business, 30%, you don't have to do anything, you just have to pay us X amount of money. Most of the time, they're going to hang the phone up.
Yeah.
So there's no point selling SEO like that, because I don't believe it's done like that.
Look, I completely agree. Now, your answer that you just provided is really valuable, and I think a lot of people who are watching this need to take this on board, because it leads into another thing, which is, well, this is my opinion, like SEO specialists, SEO consultants end up taking a lead role in businesses, like whether they're acting internally or externally. Like they need to create some kind of strategy and some kind of leadership role that the other teams need to follow in order to make it work. Otherwise, like to achieve those ultimate goals, it's just not going to work. They'll get some wins, but they won't get everything that they really, really want to get.
Yeah.
So, just from your experience, like how could, if you could just give us an idea of how you could advise either other SEOs or maybe people who are thinking about taking on an SEO person or SEO specialist, how they should consider an SEO consultant to help them drive their business forward with a leadership strategy. So that's things like how they can use the data that the SEOs are giving them, the feedback that the SEOs are giving them, just anything that will help them to reshape and redefine their business so they can continue to move forward.
Well, as I said from the very beginning, communication
Yep.
is so important.
Yep.
And basically allowing the SEO to basically, part of his role, his or her role, should obviously be reading the data. Okay, so that's a big part of what we do as SEOs. So having the stakeholders involved or the team involved, or whether it's in-house, external, or whatnot, weekly or bi-weekly meetings where you're discussing the data as it is, and leveraging what you have available to improve later on. So, for example, you might want to look at internal site search. I remember one of my clients years ago, we took the internal site search, that what people were typing in internally in their own internal search engine, and basically building out an entire, the most popular products, and basically that data was back primarily from what people were searching for, or we had like the most searched for products.
Yeah.
So it's part of this, big part of it is reading the data, communicating that data, providing suggestions on the sort of content or sort of areas we should be improving, or whether it's callability, leading the front on what needs to change to improve the campaign going forward, and then the stakeholders obviously sitting down and understanding what's involved in executing it to improve the website's current state. So it's the SEO providing the information, providing the feedback, and saying this is the areas where we're not doing so well. Here's where we need to improve. Here's what that looks like, and then the other side helping them implement it. But it definitely comes back largely on communication, and of course, the SEO's competence at reading the data, understanding the data, and what's missing, what their current campaign has that's missing, that's stopping them from getting to the next step. And I think getting everyone on board to help them out is going to go a long way. Then when you're sending off recommendations, or you want to set off certain things and they're not getting done, it's the business that's going to suffer in the long term than anyone else. So
look, I completely agree with what you said. I did speak with a couple other people about data, so I love everything that you've just said about data and the internal site search, because we're all looking for like those quick wins and also those long-term wins, because like even though we've got like access to data sources like Google Keyword Planner, SEMrush, there's still so much other data that's out there that that it's not easily presented to you. But if you're creative and you know where to find it or dig deep enough, then you can actually get it, and it can really enhance your campaign.
Absolutely.
So like with the site search, like that's one clever thing that a lot of technical SEOs that work on e-commerce sites could easily overlook, and then that could be a quick win. I know myself, I tend to run paid media campaigns to see what data is coming back, and then look at demographics and stuff like that. Like with you, like are there any other sources of data that like you really enjoy looking at?
I love finding out whether we use BuzzSumo, and obviously mentions, finding out what people, two things basically. Find out what the customers that don't know who you are, what are they searching for? What's getting the buzz in the industry? And to the customers that are finding you and they are clicking on you and they are engaging with you, what did you do right in that instance? Or what's something that you can replicate later on? I think what I love most, though, among all that, is understanding what the customers who don't know who you are, what are they searching for? What are they liking? What are they engaging with? In the outside the technical scope, of course. You can talk about it within a technical on-page point of view, but in terms of the off-page point of view, I think largely when a lot of SEOs in the industry talk about high-quality content or quality content. They say it's. I mean, maybe I've misinterpreted it, but sometimes I take it as it's an objective sort of rule. I find it's more subjective in the sense that high quality content is probably best described as what does your target market going to engage with? What are they going to share? What are they going to
Spot on.
like?
Spot
Because
on.
when you hear it sounds a bit like a mantra, quality content, quality content, quality. But what does that mean? It means content that gets linked to, it gets shared, it gets talked about. People talking about it on Facebook. Oh, did you see this video by XYZ? Or if it's an infographic, you're providing some sort of information in there that with a jewelry client, saving how to save money on your next proposal,
Yep.
and providing information in there that's going to that the target market's going to look at and go, wow, that's something I want to like. That's something I want to talk about. Link to.
Yep.
I've got a friend that's getting married.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I'm going to show them. So it's really understanding quality content. It's all about understanding what makes the market tick, and that is what I love as an SEO. That's what I love doing from the off-page point of view, is working out what does that actually mean.
Yeah.
Because if you go to a client and say quality content, well, okay, but
someone can you can hire like a really good copywriter, and then they can create like really, really good quality content, but then it's not serving the objective, so it's not going through like your funnel for your strategy in order to generate the success. And what you just said, like when I did another interview a couple of days ago, I literally said to this guy, look, everyone in the industry talks about, you need to become an authority, you need to build an authoritative site. But the real question is, what is authoritativeness really? And,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And the best analogy that I find, the best analogy I find, David, is sometimes explaining it in a way to clients, how me and my old SEO buddies used to see it as is if you have a cafe in a whole street. Let's say if you live in Sydney, take Norton Street, take George Street, whatever real high walk past traffic. What gets people coming to you? Yeah,
exactly.
And taking those concepts that you would think about in the offline world, taking them into the online world and getting that translated and transmitted in a way that makes sense. But really, it all boils down to, among all this noise in my industry, how do we stick out? And how do we get the people who don't know about us to find us, and not just find you, because obviously you might deal with certain circumstances where you have impressions really, really high, so people have seen you, but they haven't clicked with it, they haven't engaged with it, they haven't liked it, they haven't tweeted it, that hasn't provoked. We know that actions are provoked some sort by an emotion. Yeah, so it's made them laugh, made them angry, made them disappointed, sad, whatever it is. Yeah, it's the emotion behind the content that we're building and delivering that's going to set off. Is how things basically go viral at the end of the day, right? Exactly. It's an emotion behind that's provoked the action, and finding what that means for each client makes me tick.
Like when I spoke with Bill Slawski, we spoke about like popular content versus like authoritative content, and also like being able to get Google to understand like what type of content should be shown for what searches. And then incorporating that into the technical like strategy, like schema and so on. So there's people who create content and like there's content that will serve a purpose. So it'll serve the commercial strategy, get sales, get referrals, get leads. There's others which is just at the very top of the funnel, which is get some awareness, maybe get a laugh, maybe get shared a couple times, but it's not going to add to the commercial value immediately,
Yeah, and a real example of that, I don't know, maybe I don't want to go off on tangents, but some of the sort of content that we did for a previous e-commerce client, finding out different demographics of what they're searching for. Yeah. Obviously, when we were working with the e-commerce client, working out, there's a lot of volume. And not many people really talking about it when the LED TVs kind of were really the big thing. People trying to find, what is the difference between an LED and an LCD TV, and finding out there was actually maybe 300 people that would type that a month, and no one was going for it, and they weren't necessarily ready to buy a TV. Yeah. But they basically landed on a blog article which explained to them, hey, this is what the differences are. Yes. and then now you've built trust and credibility.
Yeah, exactly.
And once that trust and credibility is established, I might as well just buy the TV now while I'm here.
Yeah.
And that's where the power of, or even like you mentioned, even if they don't come back straight away, you've built that credibility. You basically explain. It's like you're giving away free information, but that information is exchanged with your credibility and that you can be trustworthy in the industry.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of that's a pretty big part of business in general.
Yeah. Another question I wanted to ask you, Andrew, was about e-commerce SEO. Now, there's a lot of guys that I work with in the industry who deal with e-commerce SEO across different platforms. But I know that you've got quite a few skills in e-commerce SEO on Magento platforms. And one of the common challenges is being able to manage the products, especially when they go out of stock or they're not being sold anymore. And just how you can manage that from an SEO perspective, because that can lead to quite a few problems if it's not managed in the right way.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, David. And I've seen some horrendous examples in my lifetime in SEO. When you start dealing with the 50,000, 100,000 product and even greater than that, what you'll find is there just becomes mountains and mountains of 404 errors. And we had this problem when I was working on Bing Lee in 2010. Some of the sort of things that you can do to solve that problem is working out, first of all, with the client, that understanding whether the following solutions can work, because there might be examples and times when this might not actually work. But if a product goes out of stock or discontinued, what I find the system does, Magento basically does by default, and what might be okay to some short stores, is they're just 404. And then what the SEO will go in and learn, look at all these products at 404. Now the problem with that, it's many different problems. Okay, so now you've got a conversion problem. So if this page was once indexed in Google, obviously making sure, like I said, Google found the product. Okay, so assuming that they found the product and they've indexed the product, if it's no longer found and someone clicks on it, what happens? They get a 404 error page. Sometimes some people might actually go back through the site and try to find a similar product. But the way I would recommend to solve that problem would be, if it's a product is out of stock or discontinued, make sure that the product itself does not 404. Does not return this page or this product is not found. Because sometimes you can have the page returned as a normal page request is a 200. And that can, if you word it as this product is no longer found, Google might pick it up as a soft 404. So just be careful with that. So what I would suggest is a nice friendly message that says, this product no longer exists, or this product has been temporarily discontinued, or it's obviously temporarily out of stock. Nice little description, show the product, and then just show, but here's a list of related products. So it fixes the problem that you won't get many 404s being generated, because it won't return a 404. If a user stumbles on it because there's links pointing to it, because sometimes you find there's a lot of links pointing to products, that you're collecting the link authority and you're still getting the credibility, because if it's a 404, you lose it. And of course, from a conversion perspective, it's like when you walk into a Woolworths supermarket, or you work into Coles or one of Australia's bigger supermarkets, and you find there's one particular product out of stock. It doesn't flash this big thing in your face, warning it's out of stock. It's okay, they don't have it in this section. Look a little bit to the right, and there's something related. So it's taking that concept and showing a list of related products. So that way you don't have any 404 error messages. You don't have to keep 301 redirecting and take the redirects out when the product comes back. And obviously, if the product is out of stock or discontinued, you don't necessarily have to have it found within the search results. You can just, it only gets requested when it either comes from Google, or it's a bookmark, or it's a link, or whatever the case may be. And then it's easy just to switch it, turn it back on without any major problems. Because when you start dealing with 100,000 products and you 404 them, you're going to have a real big issue on your hands. And the best way to handle it, I recommend, is that, because it just solves many problems.
One of the, well, not one of the things, but When I was working with e-commerce sites on the Magento platform, uh,
Yeah.
at the time it was when Panda and Penguin were being released. Uh, so at the time we saw quite a few problems just crop up because there were a
Sure.
lot of things that like should have been done, but the account managers who were managing them at the time weren't aware of the severity of not taking actions with managing things properly. So
Sure.
a couple of the things that really cropped up and became major issues was duplication.
Yeah, I
So
was just going to say that.
yeah, duplication, URL structure on the
Yeah.
site. Uh, yeah, and there was no pagination strategy, and there was no canonicalization strategy, and also the redirecting strategy. And like when you work on a smaller site, it's quite easy to like fix those problems. But
Absolutely.
when you're dealing with an e-commerce store, and I think on this site at the time it was probably around 10,000 to 20,000 pages. You can't do it one by one. You have to think of it, from a more strategic point of view. Otherwise, there's going to be more cost for the
Absolutely.
like for yourself or for the or for the company. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So like how would you manage those or even incorporate that into an e-commerce strategy that's on Magento?
Well, basically, analyzing the page, analyzing how many products there are. Sometimes I would tell clients, listen, if you build and develop more categories, we
Hmm.
might shrink down the number of pages being paginated. I find that robots do not like a lot of pagination,
Yeah.
and so what I like to do is I like to obviously no index pagination and just
Yeah.
follow the pages
Yeah.
and have all the standard, link, next, and previous.
Hmm.
But think about why there's so many products, and if you can create more categories and subcategories,
Yeah.
it's better that Google crawls category and top level pages
Yes.
rather than mountains and mountains of pagination, because what I found is they seem to get lost
Yep.
in crawling those. Obviously, you want to have a really, really large XML sitemap that covers categories, products, and any other page that would fall under an external category. So that would be where I would go. I find that the URL structuring can be a bit of an issue because obviously you've got products that can go in multiple categories.
Yep.
So what product belongs to what category? So the way I like the way I like seeing it is basically the way WordPress does it. How it
Yep.
assigns no matter what a primary category to the URL.
Yep.
Whereas Magento would be like you can get to it from you walk into use the Coles supermarket. You want to find dairy milk. You go into aisle 1, then aisle 1 has dairy. Within dairy, you have milk. You choose a
Yeah.
product,
Yeah.
right? And you have that kind of logical structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then the way Magento will do it is then you have a canonical, which then will go back to websitename.com/product name.
Yeah.
It's okay because if you have multiple products, but the problem is with that, then all the products land up on top level and you don't build credibility with the category names. And the categories, LCD TVs, LED TVs, cameras, whatever it may be, they bring a bulk of the traffic too. So you want to make sure that those URLs have authority and credibility, and the more credibility they're going to have with search engines is how many products they contain within, how many products are indexed from in the search engines. So the way I would do it is basically adopt the way that the WordPress would
Yeah.
prefer to go about it, and actually assign a product to a primary category. So even if that product is found in another category, when you click on it, it has a unique identifier, which is the whole point of a URL. But having it contain category, subcategory, product name.
Right.
And there's millions of other problems you might have too in the pagination. Is sometimes what I've found is if you've got new products, sometimes they're on pagination 30.
Yeah.
Then sometimes they're not on, and then unless you change the filtering, the search engines never get to that. And because search engines don't usually use filtering, whether it's Ajax or drop-down menus or whatnot, it doesn't get to the latest product. So you got to work out and make sure that how the page is structured, that the new products are getting indexed. I've had cases where clients will email me and say, I can't find this product in Google, I can't find it in Bing, and you just figure out, well, it's not even indexed. They haven't even found it. So making sure, like I said a while back, is making sure that you solve that problem with the crawlability, and try to put as many products as you can into or create more categories for the products. And also, I mean, there's so many things you can do. Sometimes now, a lot of the pagination I'm finding in the newer sites is Ajax-based pagination.
Okay.
So the URL isn't actually changing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about that, but that's another consideration as well.
I think I've said to you already that you've been dropping some serious gold nuggets in this interview today. So look, I want to say thank you for participating, because like the information that like you, the audience, are receiving, like you can take this away. Like this is all very actionable stuff. If you're somebody who's looking for like e-commerce SEO and technical SEO, and especially if you're based in Australia and you're looking for somebody trustworthy, Andrew's your go-to guy. So Andrew, could you just tell the guys and girls in the audience where and how they can find you?
Yeah, sure. Our website is www.omegadigital.com.au. Feel free to email us if you've ever got any questions. If you want us to look over your site, if you need some feedback, more than happy to do that. My email is andrew@omegadigital.com.au. So I love receiving emails. I love looking at new websites and solving problems. So if you've got a problem, let me look at it.
You heard him, guys. All right. I want to say thanks again. And yeah, I hope to get you on the show again in the future, man. It's been a pleasure.
Love to get back on. Thanks a lot, David.
All right. Thank you.